Well, I'm overjoyed to be with my good friend Marvin Procter. Marvin and I have been partnering in the gospel for maybe a decade now, Marvin. Pretty exciting. And you're doing a webinar in a few months, and I want to use this opportunity to let our audience know what that webinar is about because they need to participate. But before we do, I need to know the strangest food you've ever eaten.
Well, I think probably the one that felt the strangest is I was in Latin America and I had a beautiful bowl of soup with a whole chicken foot in it.
Yes. And chewy?
Chewy, yeah, not a lot of meat.
Tastes like chicken skin, kind of?
It tasted just like chicken.
So I was in the Philippines once. I've been several times actually, and they do chicken heads. And they skewer them so it's like a chicken head kebab. So there's like 5 or 6 chicken heads. You know, they got the little crown on the rooster and the beak, and it's got some type of red seasoning. So that's one of the strangest I've had.
Feet sound better.
Yes, feet do sound better.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Marvin, I'm excited about this webinar you're doing in a few months from now. But before you talk about the webinar, why don't you give us a little bit about your background in business and how you got engaged in Business for Transformation, or BAM as they call it.
I'm a business guy based in the U.S. Have always seen business as just a way that you live out your relationship with Christ. And I'm a consultant with IBEC Ventures. So I work on IBEC projects around the world that are businesses, mission projects in different places.
So let me ask this question. You have a history in business, but I know you've always viewed the workplace as a place to make disciples, but there was a transition where BAM really surfaced for you as something you wanted to invest your life and time into. How did that happen?
Well, it was, I guess I found it as a thing through a workshop I went to that Larry Sharp led.
Yeah.
And, understood business has mission, because when you follow Christ, he invades every part of your life. But recognized it then as really an actual movement.
Yeah. One of the things I love, I've heard you say, is that, we've bifurcated secular and sacred, but we shouldn't. We should view life as an integrated whole.
Yeah.
All of life is worship. Work is worship. All of life is about the mission of God of making disciples, and I love that about you. So tell us about BAM 2.0. That's the name of the webinar that you're going to be doing. I'm really interested in it because it's kind of rethinking some things about BAM. Why don't you let our audience know what it's about, why it's important?
Well, I've been thinking about BAM as a thing. I've been thinking about how do we scale it, because it has tremendous impact where it's done well. And currently the focus on business's mission is starting typically new businesses in places that need the quadruple bottom line of BAM business.
Okay.
But it doesn't lend itself well to scale that way. And so I thought, how do you scale it? And I thought about the way the church planting or disciple making work has evolved over the years. It started with a single person going to a hard place to start a church, and now we're equipping local residents to do the disciple making and build the churches. And I thought, why couldn't we take the resources, the skills, the expertise that we use to start the single businesses, why couldn't we take that and foster and facilitate robust business ecosystems in those countries with the existing business people? And I think it's a path to scale that we don't have the way we're doing BAM.
Yeah, that's really interesting. A lot of the BAM work I've seen around the world, it's great, don't get me wrong, but it's an expat, started a business, obviously employing nationals. But what you're talking about is like raising up those ideas and concepts from within the people group, is that right?
Yeah, and there is still a need for the expat to go and start the business. And if we're really going to get the gospel to the ends of the earth, if we're really going to bring transformation to every people and every tongue, we're going to have to find a way to build these platforms for the gospel more quickly and more deeply. And the people who live in the culture, they already know the culture. I know someone that's going to go start a business overseas, but they're going to spend the first 2 years just learning the culture and learning the language. Well, if we had somebody in that culture, already knew the language, already knew the culture, and we spun them up to start a business, how much quicker could we get going?
Yeah, it's the direction, as you mentioned, that church planting and disciple making has really gone. How do we tap into national believers, national leaders, really raising that up very quickly? That's very exciting. So Marvin, who needs to register for this webinar? Who would benefit from it?
Well, I think business people that have some margin in their lives that would like to do something besides fund missions, they'd like to participate directly. I think there's a place for that. I think mission organizations that are trying to figure out BAM, I know a lot are, and I think mission teams and churches that want to find a way for the people who are skilled in the workplace to serve through the church.
Yeah, it's great. So I'm sure through our Twitter feeds and social media feeds, etc., that a lot of you fit those categories: missions leaders, pastors, business professionals. So please participate in Marvin's upcoming webinar. You can register at 1615.org. Marvin, thank you. We'll see you in a couple months.
Great. Thanks, Matthew.